Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to wait just a minute and see if we have any other colleagues joining live. Hello again. I see that more colleagues are joining, but in respect of everyone's time, we want to get started. So thank you so much for joining us. My name is Natalie Aldern, and I'm a Program and Policy Officer with the Program Cycle and Quality team at WFP headquarters in Rome. This one?
Hi, thank you, Natalie. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this session. I'm Rizwan Sadiq, and I'm part of Frontier Innovations team as an AI consultant at WFP Innovation Accelerator, Munich. Thank you.
Thanks. And so what we're hoping to do today is share with you a little bit about what we've been working on in thinking about how to integrate AI into WFP's country strategic planning. But we also are very much looking forward to having a discussion with you about anything that you've been thinking about how to leverage large, what we've learned on this project at WFP. So the run of the show today is we're going to go through a short presentation with some of the background, also to just give you information about what country strategic plans are at WFP. And you're more than welcome to use the chat to introduce yourselves and also to put questions into the Q&A, and we'll do our best to answer them. But during the presentation, we are going to give you a live demo of how the tools that we have work, and then have a discussion. And while you can use the Q&A feature, one thing that we would really like to do is actually have that more interactive discussion with you. And so please feel free to raise your hand, come on to mic or camera to ask questions or to share at the end. So with that, we can go ahead and start. So we're just going to give you a quick overview of the project. Country strategic plans, or I'll refer to them as CSPs, are something that WFP uses in every operational context that we have. And they really require a lot of consultation, but also deep analysis. So that's the challenge that we were facing. And what we've done is we've developed an AI-powered system to help to accelerate extracting some strategic insights from some of the inputs that we use in CSP processes, really based on WFP's knowledge base of country documents. We have more than one tool. We have a tool that will give overviews of outcomes and activities within a given country. We use an AI-powered chatbot to really query our country strategic plans and also annual reports. And then we also have a early stage tool that helps with feedback as you're writing one of these strategic planning documents. We do use GPT-4, but we have some, we think, unique features, including a custom parser that we've built to help when we ingest these complex PDFs. We have more than one AI chatbot agent that we use, and really we've tailored it to WFP's language because we know that in the UN, in government, in many sectors, we have our own jargon, our own terminology, and our own knowledge base that we need to use. This is at the minimum viable product stage. So we're at the MVP development stage. We are still testing it internally, and we are making plans for more formal piloting. So we're also thinking that we want to use this tool not only for country strategic planning, but also integrate it across WFP in different ways, because we think that there's a lot of applications for how you can use LLMs in this way, large language models. So thanks. This one, if we go to the next slide. Okay, so what is a country strategic plan, a CSP? So at WFP, this is everything that we do in a given country. It's a single comprehensive plan in each operating context. And it really is about WFP's prioritized strategy in that country. And that includes responding to crises, building resilience, and addressing root causes of food insecurity and malnutrition. It's really about driving the strategic focus. So we're aware that we need to complement what others are doing to prioritize resources and to really reach the people who are most in need that we're serving. And so it's also about fostering partnerships across the HCP nexus. And it's not only aligned with other plans, but derived from national frameworks and UN and humanitarian frameworks. So even though this is WFP's plan, it is about complementing all of these other partnership frameworks and really supporting governments. But there's several challenges in formulating a country strategic plan. So these are really consultative-based processes. This is about working directly with the communities who are affected, with partners, with governments. But in reality, it also includes a lot of deep analysis of vast volumes of data and documents. Some of these documents could include national level policies. It could be decentralized evaluations or country specific evaluations. It's needs assessments, different frameworks, et cetera. So all of these need to be considered when we're developing a next strategic plan in a country. And this cycle repeats every 3 to 5 years. So, and we have a lot of deadlines that are placed on this. We want it to be as relevant, as timely, and focused as possible, but we have our own governance deadlines we're working with. We're aligning with different UN Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework deadlines and national planning deadlines as well. So when you're up against this huge amount of information that it needs to be considered to really have as strategic and informed a strategy as possible, but you're doing it on a deadline, you're risking that you're missing insights and there might be inefficiencies, and you need to align different documents across many, many levels from national to global. So essentially, if you're looking at the graphic, here's just some of the documents only. So in addition to the consultations, in addition to the quantitative data that you're analyzing, there's national plans we need to consider, needs and context analysis, WFP's own strategic plan, and its various policies under specific thematic areas, what partners are doing, what our funding trends might look like, any lessons that we've learned. And all of these need to feed into a really agile and achievable CSP. So in terms of the problem statement, when we were thinking about developing this solution, we were looking specifically at this part of the challenge in developing CSPs and navigating this vast amount of diverse information, these complex 100-page documents that can really create a time-intensive analysis. But that analysis is critical because it's through that analysis that you can start to identify some of the gaps and inform any strategic shifts that WFP might be needing to make in a country. So, thanks. Rizwan, I think over to you.
Hi. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you for giving the comprehensive overview of what the CSP looks like. Now, I'll be just walking you through the tool what we have and how we developed it and what were the advantages of it. So as you mentioned, as you heard earlier, that drafting a CSP means digging through huge amount of documents like previous CSPs, evaluation report, policies, and lessons learned. These are good, but again, it's very time consuming and complex. So this can definitely delay. And if you see this whole analysis, this takes basically around a year to formalize all these details, drafting the whole CSP process. And here, what we initially thought that we can build an AI system that can help us reduce the time and make life easier for the people who are involved in the drafting of the CSP documents. And we can inject the AI or ML solutions. And with the rise of Gen AI, this is basically a game changer and it can help us rapidly analyzing all this information. It can surface any key insights, gaps, and emerging trends almost instantly. And it helps our teams to focus on what really matters. It can interpret the insights and make strategic decisions instead of like getting down all the manual reviews. So this is the whole process we are trying to optimize using the tool we have. What this tool can do, before I would like to mention that this is an internal tool, and it is currently, as Natalie mentioned, it is currently at an MVP stage, so it is only available to the internal teams. Once we get the approvals, we will make it pilot for the country offices and other UN agencies. Uh, this tool is leveraging over a lot of documents. So we have a huge knowledge base of documents. We in WFP Data Hub, we are utilizing all the data from there. And specifically, we divided this tool into three specific sub tools, you can say, or three functionalities which we can use it. The first one is explored outcomes and activities. So this is one of the uh, major thing that can help the teams uh, directly get the information from the Dots Data Hub. And when the people are drafting the CSP, they are looking through all the documents, but instantly getting the quantitative analysis, like what went wrong, what went well, and how long was this activity uh, uh, how long this activity was planned and how was implemented. All these things matter. And when you can get the quantitative analysis on your tips, I think it can really help the organization to optimize their workflow. And we can identify the gaps by following these activities, like how long we need to implement the school feeding program and which countries were relevant and uh, how well they performed. So this is basically about this tool. The second one is Explore Document. This is more around chatbot, uh, where users can go in and ask questions regarding the CSPs, CSP evaluations, or the other documents. It's basically using ChatGPT GPT-4 model, and there are two specific agents. And once you select a country, you can ask questions directly to the agent, and it will give you answers only specific to that country. But we have another agent that is, we call it as a cross-country agent. It scans multiple countries' documents to surface the broader patterns and the lessons learned. And the user questions are usually dynamically routed through the prompting and the chain of thoughts to the right agent, making sure the responses are highly relevant and coherent. The third one, we have a feedback assistant for CSP. This is one of the features we have. It is still an experimental one, but very useful one. It analyzes user drafted CSP sections against a specific CSP rubric and similar past contents. It offers targeted suggestions to improve alignment, structure, and clarity. It uses some model functions with the LLMs to provide the feedback for a specific section and draft a CSP. So these rubrics are the guidelines which the team of our CXP experts have written down, and the LLM tries to give you a better, more structured content for your CSP. So what makes this CSP unique and better than the other all the LLMs that are already available? The first one, I think it's already uh, very important to understand there are so many solutions out there. We have Gemini, we have ChatGPT, we have some free AI models available, but those are very generic AI models. But what makes AI for CSP is unique is that it is specifically designed for WFP strategic planning documents, and it makes the difference in whole level of accuracy and the relevance. The first thing, which is the core of this project, is the custom PDF parser. In general, PDF parser, they just scan page by page and you can define the layout or anything. But here we realize that each document has a specific section. It is connected to different sections, subsections, and they have context. So what we did is that we developed a PDF, custom PDF parser for the ACRs and the CSP documents, and we provide the more relevant and accurate chunks. It roughly works with finding headers and subheaders in the document and finding the chunks in between headers as a metadata. Uh, if we compare this with free Microsoft Copilot and ChatGPT, it gives us more clear, more consistent, and context-aware answers. And also, what makes it powerful is how it handles the data and the prompts. We have curated very user-defined and system prompts into this tool which connects the data and how all these data is structured. So basically, we structure the data so that the model can make informed decisions. And these are very carefully crafted sequences that guides AI to interpret and respond using WFP specific terminology and strategic framework. And I think that is the most important thing, that we are building this tool specifically for the UN or humanitarian organization language, not just a generic tool which can try to hallucinate more and more. And what potential impact we can have, like we have this tool, what can we do with it? So the first thing I think is the most important thing, we want to optimize the time. It can accelerate document analysis, one of the most important aspect, because CSP formulation is time consuming, and reviewing the existing material is also very much time consuming. So AI dramatically speeds this up with intelligent search and semantic indexing. Uh, Many teams can surface relevant context in seconds instead of spending days and just combing through all the documents. So this is really useful. Uh, the second use we can think of is the enhanced document drafting efficiency. Drafting CSP usually involves multiple rounds of edits to align with guidelines and the policies. So AI feedback assistant acts as an always-on reviewer. It can flag gaps, offer suggestions, and as I mentioned earlier, we have CSP rubric guidelines. So based on these guidelines, it can help us make enhanced drafts. And the third one, we have a streamlined strategic planning. So it also addresses the common challenge in CSP formulation, the analytical depth. So this AI assistant surfaces such insights automatically and ensures that we have more robust and evidence-informed uh, decision making. So this is what we have all about the tool. We will, this is, I wanted to share with you, so when you go to the demo, you have an idea that what we are planning to do. I will hand over to Natalie uh, for a quick demo, so she can show you exactly how this tool works. Over to you, Natalie. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rizwan. Okay, so we will go for the live demo. So welcome to AI for CSPs. This is what it looks like for an end user. And as Rizwan was saying, we have different parts of the tools that you can use, but I'm going to start with the Gen AI one that we believe has applications across WFP and potentially beyond. So this is the Explore Documents tool. When I go into Explore Documents tool, there's two different functionalities. I can query it about a specific country, because let's say I'm creating a new CSP for Afghanistan over the next year. So I really want to drill down onto the insights that I have from Afghanistan. So I'm going to make sure that I'm in the in-country tool. And we have some predefined questions to get started, but the user can follow any natural line of inquiry. For ease, I'm going to pick a predefined question. So for Afghanistan, I'm going to ask it, how has the operational context and needs evolved since the design of this country's strategic plan? Remembering that they're done every 3 to 5 years, and they can potentially be extended. So here I'm getting the answer from my agent. It's a high-level summary. It's saying that it's evolved significantly. Of course, if the CSP was first designed in 2018, things have changed quite a bit. There's been a drought. There's been a pandemic. There's been a shift in governance. So it's giving me a high-level summary. We don't want this agent to ever replace the human. It's really supposed to be about making sure that we can accelerate different processes. So one of the features that we have is that we ask it to cite its sources. So I can even look at the citation and start to see where is it pulling it from. It's pulling it from our centralized evaluation. Specifically, it's pulling it from this part of the evaluation. And the database that it's pulling from right now, as Rizwan was saying, are really a selection of WFP's country-specific evaluations, decentralized evaluations, other CSP documents, and annual reports. So I can instantly see the source of this. Okay, let's say it's saying that there was limited ability to reach targets or to contribute to longer-term goals. So if I'm thinking about my next CSP, maybe I want to know specifically, how did the resilience activities perform? So now it's searching in country through those annual reports, through the evaluations. And it's giving me a very, very short summary about there's several challenges and limitations. So some of what it's listing is limited donor interest, funding constraints. It's giving me an example of a specific resilience activity, food assistance for assets, that the beneficiaries reported strong positive effects. I can check again the source because I would prefer that this be from an evaluation report and not a planning document, for example. That would be more relevant to my query. But let's say this is too generic for me to walk into a formulation meeting with partners and say there was a lot of challenges. So I really want more targeted insights. I can actually ask the agent to help me. What is a more precise question about resilience activities? Again, we're using GPT-4, so it has the capabilities that it would. So it tells me, this is a more precise question. Do you want to use it? Yes, I do. So it can ask it to help me with the prompting and then use that prompt to get a more specific answer that might better inform discussions or pre-formulation analysis. So it's helping me to identify it needs a comprehensive approach to resilience building. There was this maybe a structural issue because CSPs follow a clear line of sight, so that might have limited flexibility. So these are all specific things that might help me either to go down asking more questions or to start to prepare for deeper formulation meetings. Okay, so now let's imagine again. And I appreciate this review of my own documents, but one of the values of working for a huge network like the UN, a global organization like WFP, is that we have experiences in many, many countries. And so how do we start to apply that learning? That's why we developed also this cross-country analysis. So it's not that I only need to look at my country setting. I can start to look at experiences from across. So sure, let's say, how has Afghanistan approached school feeding compared to Ethiopia? I can have it start to compare. This is a feature that you could use not only for cross-country, but also, let's say, for cross-organizational comparison. I can ask it, what is UNICEF planning to do compared to UNHCR? Is there a gap that still needs to be filled in terms of foods insecurity and nutrition programming that WFP could potentially start to identify? Can I compare two different policies, the school feeding policy and the social protection policy in a national context, and see if there are any gaps? Okay, so here's the analysis. You might have seen the agent also do some thinking. We have it also display its logic. I need to compare these two countries first. I need to look at contextual. So here it's done that. It's giving me a comparison and it's acknowledging that there's different contextual issues at play. In Afghanistan, there were high energy biscuits and take-home rations. Ethiopia did more integration with the national system, nutrition-sensitive homegrown approaches. And now it's giving me all the citations here as well. I see some failed to load, but so let's see. If I've now identified what they did differently, I can also ask the LLM to give me a starting point of what that could mean. So what lessons learned in Ethiopia could apply to school feeding in Afghanistan? Again, because our country strategic planning process is always looking forward. What changes do we need to make? How do we respond to changing contexts? How do we anticipate what might come? It gives me a very quick summary of how it thinks that these could be applied because of different contextual factors. Maybe I'm thinking, in fairness, Ethiopia's context is not that similar to Afghanistan. So I might ask it, where else does WFP do homegrown school feeding in drought context? Because specifically, if I want to start to integrate more smallholder production into the value chain for school feeding in Afghanistan, that's something I might want to consider. Then I want to know where there's other examples where that's been done in a drought-prone setting. So here we have it. It starts to summarize a few of the different contexts where WFP is doing homegrown school feeding. in high drought risk. This is a very potentially useful tool for us because WFP has a lot of quantitative information. That quantitative information is not always tagged with these contextual factors like drought, conflict, and different factors that are really critical when I'm planning a contextualized, prioritized plan. But speaking of quantitative data, since this is built into WFP's data universe, we can pull in that quantitative data. So this is also meant for us to be assistance for the human in the loop check. The LLM is telling me all of these things that potentially I could do differently if I want to consider is that actually may be possible in Afghanistan compared to Ethiopia. Maybe I want to think about the scale. So this tool right now pulls in some of the programmatic data. I can say, okay, well, it's really nice that it's telling me that Malawi is a similar context, but when I look at, reaching 1 million beneficiaries per month in Afghanistan compared to the scale of the program in Malawi, maybe I have to think about how I make that translation of that lesson to my actual context. And then finally, I'll show you the feedback assistance for CSPs. This is also one where we see it could potentially be used in many different organizations and also across WFP, not just for country strategic planning, because what this can do is compare anything against a rubric. So in this case, I have some text from Kenya that I want to use. So I'm going to tell it that specifically I'm thinking about Kenya. Put in some draft text here already, and it's telling me what it believes, what section of the country strategic plan it believes this is from. Because within WFP, at least we have different guidelines about what should be included in each part of your plan. This should be in your context and background section. This should be in your comparative advantage section. So this draft text that I have here, it's actually about national priorities. It's summarizing what's happening in the UN Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework and also some of Kenya's national plans. So I'll say, yes, apply these rules to this section of the draft and give me some feedback. So now what it's doing is it's sending our draft text along with those rubric rules for comparison and analysis by the LLM. This one has a bit of a lag, so but here it is. Okay, so here's what it's telling me potentially I've missed. It doesn't explicitly mention some population groups that it expected to appear in this section. There's no sustainable models or co-financing mentioned because it's comparing it now to the last CSP. That the last country strategic plan talked about these things. But now for the rubric, for the rules for this section, this chunk of text I gave it doesn't mention a detailed summary of the consultative process. And CSPs are evidence-based, but they're very, very consultative as well. That's a key part of the information that we're considering. It's not really giving a description of specific government programs or the readiness of national institutions. So a draft can't have everything everywhere, but this is giving me some early pointers that you might want to consider integrating this, because at least in WFP's system, once the strategy and the way forward is a bit set, there's still a technical review of the document. So this starts to do some of that early technical review, maybe catching some red flags that before you get to a final draft, follow up on these points and consider these points. So I'll stop there for now. And maybe just share some of what we've learned from working on this problem statement and also developing the tools that you just saw us go through. So Rizwan went through some of what we think is potentially unique about how we built this solution, but we did hit some challenges along the way of getting it to this point. A big one was data ingestion. So I showed you that this is built in WFP's kind of data environment, but this data environment primarily handles so far quantitative data. It's looking at metric tonnage, it's looking at beneficiary numbers, and so it looks at some contracts, but overall, ingesting large, complex PDFs, which we use for strategic analysis, was not something that was previously done. And so thinking through the governance then of this data You can write rules to clean quantitative data. How do you do that with qualitative data? Who's going to monitor if these annual country reports are still the most relevant? How are we pulling in these large PDFs that typically sit in a repository or a library, and not in a database? How do you build that pipeline to ingest it from the library into a data hub? So it was this technical challenge of ingesting large PDFs, but also organizational, like in our case. And how do you seek the approval? In our case, we used only publicly available information, publicly published reports. There's not sensitive information, internal information in these, but still we had to think through the stakeholders that need to be involved in building a new data set. So if you were thinking of something similar, identifying those data sources very early, being very clear about the type of documents or knowledge sources that you want in is really, for us, was a key lesson learned. So now with managing this data, we've seen that it is possible, to use an LLM to contextualize the responses when we're also using a defined database of organizational documents. We've seen that it helps reduce the risk of hallucination. We can be very clear. If the document says nothing about this, then that's your response. You tell me you don't know it. Don't make something up. And that's also why we have it cite its sources when it gives a response. Since we use a custom parser, so that's been customized to our country strategic documents, also the structure of our evaluation reports, the structure of our annual reports, if the user asks a contextual question, then the chunks of data that should be taken from those should be from the context section of all of those documents. If I'm asking more about recommendations, again, since we've customized how these documents have been split, we're not sending a 100-page PDF to the LLM. We get more concise, accurate answers when we test it with the subject matter experts. The trade-off is that developing that custom parser can be resource intensive. And if you don't have standardized documents, if you really want to be able to kind of manually drop files in, maybe it's not worth it to do a custom parser. And you saw in the demo as well, prompt engineering still matters. So we can customize our AI agents, but the way that the user asks a question is still really critical for the type of answer that they're going to get. And their familiarity with large language models will impact kind of their ability to assess the accuracy of the potential response. One workaround we found is asking the agent themselves to suggest better questions, because we did see that we did try making really precise prompts or assigning a strict persona to our agents. They do have a persona, but if we gave them, for example, an evaluator persona, it would only give us responses from evaluations. And evaluations are really critical pieces of information, but they're not the only knowledge products that are important if you're considering a country strategic planning formulation. So we had to kind of balance that. But we do foresee that large scale rollout will entail some training, because we don't want people to treat the agent as an oracle. It really is a support. Okay, so those are the main lessons we've learned, and we're interested to hear if you've learned something similar. And so just to summarize, so we really kicked this off in earnest in March of last year, and we completed the MVP in April, where we've currently done some user testing. We're still working on more. And we're planning to pilot this year. And from there, we would hope to roll this out to all countries, but also to different processes. So thank you so much. That is the main overview. I see that there's a couple Q&A. I can see some questions came in. Okay, the first one is for Rizwan. I don't know if you want to take it, but again, please feel free to raise your hands, because we also want to know from you if you've encountered similar problem statements, but also what you've been doing with large language models. So thanks. Rizwan, over to you on the package you would recommend for PDF parsing.
Natalie, thank you. I think I already responded to the question in the chat, but I see some of the questions also in chat section also. The first one is from Luna, and she says that does the tool work only with a predefined set of documents? Yes, at the point, and we are planning to add a functionality where user can input a document, but as Natalie mentioned, that document ingestion is like very has to go through a lot of approval. So we need to make sure that the right type of documents are uh, inserted into the tool, and we want to have a temporary database for every user if they are since it will be a tool for internal use only, not for everyone public use. So the people who are going to use, they will be internal. So yes, we will have an option, but currently we do not support that. We are working on it. Hopefully in the pilot phase we will have a user input. The second one I will pass on to Natalie about the governance issues, if she can.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so when we were thinking about the ways in which AI might support our full kind of CSP cycle, we really focused in on the earlier stage pre-formulation of a CSP. So really thinking about how do we support the humans who will always be doing the strategic planning at WFP to have as much information that might be relevant to their decision making as possible. So as you said, the synthesizing, that's the main focus of this. Because there was also, we realized when we were working on this tool, this tendency when we said Gen AI and CSPs together for people to assume that we were using the LLMs to write CSPs, which is absolutely not the intention or the case. And we really wanted to think through how can we use LLMs in a different way. So 100%, we do not want it to be generically doing a first draft for us. So you saw even in the drafter assistance, it is on the user to put the information in. It looks at the history of documents within that country to identify if they've missed something really obvious. And for us, I mean, maybe this is a WFP specific challenge, but a different challenge. So outside of the formulation of CSP, the later stage after the design is basically set. And you're thinking about just the technical standard review. Has this aligned with WFP policies? You know, like, is this really, if the idea is great, you know, what are the technical standards that we still need to check have been applied? There's a lot of back and forth sometimes around specific terminology that is always evolving as we learn more and update our standards. And so we're thinking through the drafting tool in terms of this. And I think the question about the problem-driven context specific, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's still about that, but we wanted to not overlook the fact that there are other experiences within the organization that might not be the exact problem in the exact context with the exact stakeholders, but we want to leverage our full knowledge base. And so if we can ask specific questions about what other countries have done to just inspire, not to duplicate and copy paste across, was more of our intention there. Thanks. It's a good question. I see some questions from Michael. Some suggestions from Michael as well, which we, yes, fully agree. So anyone else thinking of using a customized solution like this, as with any data-driven solution, it's based on how good your data is. So the next step for us also is really to expand the knowledge base that we have to ingest more of these types of documents that are really critical in like really fully informing in a comprehensive way an analysis like this. So yes, executive board, other UNSDCF evaluations, I think. Does the tool support the definition of indicators? The rubric tool could do that. The rubric can be anything, right? The rubric could be that it needs to follow these specific indicators for whatever text you're putting in. And then in terms of the AI chatbot agents, yes, I mean, Rizwan, you can correct me, but we've been able to basically train it on WFP's specific language and types of documents. And so if there was a specific type of indicator that you're using, you could essentially define that for the agent itself. Am I, Rizwan, please step in if I'm wrong.
Well, 99%, except we did not train it.
Right.
We just connected it to the right set of data. So yes, if you have the definition of indicators, sure, that can be supported and connected. I don't see any problem over there, or I don't see any roadblock over there.
Okay, I see now a question in Q&A. One is about sharing our contact information. Yes, we're happy to do that. We would love to continue the conversation and collaborating. I see that someone is also sharing their work in progress. And then there's a question from Michael, and maybe Rizwan, I'll let you take the first stab at this. WFP corporately is, and I know across the UN more broadly, has access to Copilot. And there's multiple applications for developing CSPs that we could do within Copilot. Is there any thinking to make this AI for CSPs interoperable or interactive with Copilot, or how do they compare?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, that we do have Copilot license for some of the users at WFP, and Microsoft 365 do support it, but it's very generic. It's still not, you can give it access to all the documents you have, but the relevant documents, they are not all in Microsoft 365 ecosystem at this point. That's why when we were comparing it with the Copilot system, it was giving us more generalized answer rather than what we are looking for. There is a possibility, but I don't see it happening very soon because it's a very long shot, and then it has to be very much gone through a lot of approvals. It can be done. Technically, I think it's possible that Microsoft Copilot can have an access to all the documents which we are using in here. Then we can replicate all the information over there, what we have been doing in this tool. But it's a very long shot. I cannot comment on that. We will have it. Maybe we don't. So
Yeah, I think that as with many organizations right now, like WP's corporate approach to AI, we have an AI strategy, but rolling that out is a bit iterative and going in phases. And I think one kind of generic takeaway that we've seen with having the custom parser versus using a Copilot is both the precision. So in terms of identifying the information that the user is really specifically querying about, but also potentially the cost saving. So since we've chunked this data in these very long PDFs in a specific way, when we ask a query, it's only those shorter chunks that are sent to the LLM. So in terms of token usage, we see it being very minimal. So it's another costing consideration. Is anyone else working on solutions that integrate large language models? I mean, we see this potentially being useful also for, being able to extract information for briefs, not just for, longer, more consultative documents as well. So. No?
I see one telecom69.wordpress.com from Ashwini. Work in progress.
Okay. Well, we're not seeing any more questions right now, but we thank you so much for your engagement. We are absolutely interested in continuing to hear from you about what you've been working on, or if there's anything more that we can share from this experience. And to colleagues at WFP, we're looking forward to piloting with you soon. So thank you all so much. Great to hear you and EP is working on something similar too.
Best of luck.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.